live. Okay, we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gravity Max live stream, now with background music.
Yes, this is an original composition by Max.
Yes, it is.
Because A, we don't want to use copyrighted music, and B, Max is actually a pretty good composer.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I'm not as good as Zach, who was on the show previously, but I dabble, you know. And
he dabbles.
You gotta watch where you're stepping when you use music in a video, because even if it says royalty free, the person that uploaded it might in themselves be violating copyright law, and they just might say, "Oh, royalty free," then it's not, and then you get hit with a copyright violation, and it's like, "Oh no, what do I do?" Because how do you remove background music from a video? It's in the background, in the audio. So this is the way to cover all bases. Everything's fine, you know.
So we have a guest. We have a guest here today.
Totally.
We have Ryan, who you may know as Chip Major.
Mm-hmm.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good.
Cool.
I'm excited to be on the show.
Yep.
We're excited to have you here.
Yeah. Make sure to check out his channel in the description. We're going to plug that in a bit, but just generally, yeah, do that.
Yeah.
He makes animation videos, which is pretty apt for today's topic. So, yeah.
So let's get the disclaimer and plugs out of the way real quick.
Okay. This video is not intended for children under 13 years old. If you are under 13 years old, please do not watch this video, as the topics we discuss are meant for those with at least a high school level of education. If you are not 13 years old, you will not understand the scientific topics discussed in this video. Now, FTC, you, FTC person watching this, pay attention. This is about the science and history of animation. It is not about animation. It's not about shows that appeal to kids. It's not meant to be animated characters that appeal to kids. It is analyzing and discussing said animated characters and their history, which is something that kids don't like to do if you've ever been around them. They do not like analyzing and discussing things. They just like to shout. So, yeah, please do not fine us $40,000 for this video.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, this is basically just a deep dive into the the science of animation, also all the work that goes into it, which is why we have Ryan here.
Yep.
To give us some intel from the field.
Yeah.
You know, so hi FTC person.
Yes.
That's what the video is about.
FTC person. So if you're 13, get out of here. Get out. Leave. Now. Go. Shoot.
Go on. Get.
Go on. Get. So, check out the Gravity Max website. It's a Google Sites, but it still exists. And Google Sites is free. Remember that. So, we also have a social media platforms. We have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Everything's in the description, website, and social media. So if you want to check that out, then you can check that out to get updates about Gravity Max. And yeah, speaking of updates, hope you enjoy this new matinee time, Sunday at 5 instead of Saturday at 7. It was becoming inconvenient Saturday at 7, so we have made a change to Sunday at 5. What do you think, Sebastian? Do you like this time better?
I think this works well.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to be less tired at the end of it.
Definitely.
We're going to not be as hungry.
Mm.
There's been many times where my dinner has gotten delivered midstream. I have to quickly mute myself and receive it.
Mm.
But thankfully, because of the time change, that will happen much, much less.
Yep. So, definitely more alert and awake. And, yeah. So, also follow Sebastian on social media at Karl Marxman on Instagram. Is it still the only work?
It's still that one
piece of art. Amazing.
Yeah, Michelangelo could not have done better.
Yeah.
like this work of art.
Yeah, honestly. So, we also have Ryan's channel, Chip Major. That is in the description. The link is in the description.
Oh, you might need to go in and out of present.
Yeah, sorry. Yep. Some updates, last minute updates were made. Okay, so YouTube, and then also on Instagram. Yeah. So YT_Chip Major. So just, support our guests because they're fun people. And yeah. So, oh yes, then A Truly Dead Rock. Link in the description, I think. It's my sci-fi book that I wrote and published about a month ago. A little over a month ago. And it takes place 83 years in the future on the moon. And if you are a fan of sci-fi, then you should definitely buy this book. I think you might enjoy it. So, yeah. The Science of Animation.
Yes.
And for some reason, the disclaimer is not present.
Oh, no. Hit click.
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
animated.
yes. Okay.
It's animated. Don't you see?
I remember that now. I remember far too late after I've made the remark. Yeah, it's animated. Get it?
See, it's animated right there. That's animation on the screen.
Ooh.
If you were wondering what animation was, it was what you just
Yeah,
saw on
look
the
at
screen
that.
because that was animated and that is animation.
Yeah, look how smooth that is. Look at that
Oh, yeah.
animation.
Look at that.
So
thank you.
Yeah.
That's going to be the video for today. Thank
No.
you so much for watching.
Yeah, so the science of animation. Animation is an interesting topic. I'd say a big portion of movies today that
Oh,
you
definitely.
see come
more,
out,
more so than ever.
animated
With
movies.
all the super high budget
Mhm.
CGI stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Definitely.
totally. Yeah, I'd say maybe a quarter are just fully animated out of the movies you see coming out. Maybe a bit less, but
Yeah.
it's a lot.
Like the most recent Disney and like Pixar movies, like
Mhm.
Coco and Moana
Yeah.
and that stuff. That's all. It's all
Yeah,
CGI.
Disney and Pixar always on the animation, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, wait,
It's-
yeah, you're right.
yeah.
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 sorry.
So
But
Yeah.
all those recent, or I should say, they've been coming out with movies recently.
yeah,
So
Yeah.
it's been recent movies that have it.
yeah, animation. You also see it in TV, a lot of TV shows, and increasingly just on the internet. Now that the internet is a thing that exists and it's affecting society and culture, you see it on YouTube, for instance. There are a lot of YouTube animator channels, such as Chip Major, and they have gotten pretty big. Like The Odd One's Out, a few million subscribers, I think. So animation is a major aspect of society, I think, of today's society. I mean, everyone knows what animation is. I'd say the majority of kids' shows, at least, are animated, which is where the false equivalence comes in, where the FTC gets a little confused, and they think, oh, a lot of kids' shows are animated, so animation is for kids. But that's just not how logic works. I can actually identify the logical fallacy. It's if P then Q does not mean if Q then P. So, yeah, I learned that in 8th grade.
Yeah, actually, for
7th
Christmas,
grade,
this
I think,
Christmas,
actually.
I got a
Yeah.
book. I have a book detailing all the logical fallacies.
Nice. We should just have a reading of the logical fallacy that the FTC is breaking right now. Just read that.
Yeah. I don't know where the book is, but
yeah.
I would grab it.
Yeah, that would be funny. But anyways, so first we're going to discuss the history of animation. So let's get right on into it. History. The first animation.
The history
Yeah.
of animation, how it's been done throughout time.
Mhm.
Let's jump right into
Yeah.
it. Why don't
The first animation.
So, yeah. You want to take this, or do you want me to take this?
Well, I think we can all talk about it. I've seen a
Yeah.
few of these. There's a few iterations and different styles, but yeah, this is definitely a very old version. You have a cylinder with multiple images on it that usually loop, and they spin around with some source of light. like creating a strobe effect so that you just see the image for a fraction of a second. And honestly, I think these are the first GIFs, if you think about it, right? Because they're always
it is pronounced GIF.
Yeah, they're always short. They're a few seconds long, and they looped, which is interesting. So, yeah.
So yeah, this originated specifically in China.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see, it was before 1000 CE. So this is obviously pretty old technology, but we kind of see it today. There, in a lot of museums, there's exhibits that are dedicated to what they call as shadow play, where they like have a light source and then they like make structures in front of the light source and effectively make sculptures out of the shadow.
Yep.
It's really cool. If you want, you can look it up.
Yeah.
But
I think it's called the shutter effect or something, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's also part of it.
Where I saw this really cool one when me and Sebastian and I, we went to this museum like for a field trip, and it was like this big, like really big spinning contraption. I'd say a yard or two in diameter, and it had a ton of clay models. This was like a really expensive thing, and I'd say it had maybe 24 bars going up and down, and it was spinning, and the lights in the room were going on and off at a rate that matched the amount of time it took for one bar to move into the spot of where the last bar was, which creates the effect that, well, it creates the illusion of motion, which is, you know, what animation is, which I thought that was pretty cool. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I actually know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So,
Chip, do you work with shadows at all?
Well, I haven't, no.
No. Well, yeah, this is old style animation.
Yeah, we're going to be getting into
I bet you'll have more to say later, I guess, with discussions of modern animation. But yeah, so this is where it all began, with these shadows. Next, the First Projector, which is interesting. Look at that. Magic lantern, 17th century. And
so
yeah,
go on.
And it's just interesting. If you think of a projector, they usually have a lot of slides. I'd say a couple dozen, you know. But this one has maybe 10, which is just like shows the beginning of technology. So you got 10 pictures to reel around. And wow, 17th century, 1600s. That's crazy. Or wait, did I get that flipped? Yeah, no, 1600s. I hate the like century thing.
Yeah, we've talked about on stream before how it is just unnecessarily
confusing. But 17th century, 1600s, which is pretty crazy. You think 1600s, what do you think? Before America, before the Salem witch trials up until 1692. So Salem witch trials, and someone made this before then, which I bet they would get tried for witchcraft. They'd be like, they had a moving image show. It's like, yeah. So, anyways.
So, yeah, it was mostly developed in the 17th century, and it really didn't have a purpose other than entertainment. And then during the 19th century, it was applied to educational purposes, which we see a lot of today. With like projectors and smart boards and all that stuff.
Yeah, and the technology has far progressed. I think, weren't the original projectors, you would make your slides on paper or something, and then they would project it onto the board at the front of the room?
Yeah.
That's really old school, really old fashioned. But now we have, I guess, LCD screens kind of, and then we have pretty much laser light, I'd say, coming out of the smartboard projectors or active inspire projectors, whichever preferred board of use your school has.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So, yeah, the projector is obviously very important to animation. and just other things as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see that we got it and used it for both entertainment and educational purposes, which is the two main things we use projectors for today, as early as the 18th century.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's always interesting to see how technology...
Or was it the 19th century?
Or 17th century.
Hold on. What did I say earlier?
Well, I think
19th century.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was the 19th century. 1800s. There we go.
Wait, I'm confused.
Yeah, it came out in the 17th century,
Okay.
1600s, and then it was used for education purposes in the 19th century.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that the little graphic at the bottom was correct.
Yeah,
otherwise we'd have to retcon.
Yeah,
but we're good. So,
right. So let's hop over to the first animated film.
Sure.
So this is this is the first ever animated film. It's called Humorous Phases of Funny Faces, and it was made in 1906. It was filmed at 20 FPS, and we're going to talk about FPS later. And basically, it's like a 3 to 4 minute video, and here we just have a small GIF, and yes, it's pronounced GIF, of it, and it's basically drawings on a chalkboard or blackboard. I don't know. What the difference is. But
me neither.
It's just little depictions, little animations of like funny little movements. Like there's a clown in there.
Yeah.
There's a Chad with an umbrella. Yeah, all that.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can see the 1906 values reflected in this little clip. The smoking.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's interesting. Yeah, first animated film. And it looks like something I would make 4 years ago, you know, with the shaky cam. You see that shaky cam, and the camera's moving over. I think I actually made a video on whiteboard, just on an actual whiteboard, like ASAP Science or Minute Physics would do. I just did a video on a whiteboard, and so then I was holding the camera above the whiteboard. It was really bad, and then I figured out that Google Slides exist, and so does iMovie, and I was like, oh, okay, I should do this. But yeah, it was. I don't like to think of that video. It was. I bet it's still up. It might still be up.
Oh.
Because if
that's not good.
I've only taken down the things that are no longer science related. I'm keeping Rento though, because that was fun.
Yeah, keep Rento.
It's because it's part
Chip,
of the series.
How do your animations stack up to Humorous Phases of Funny Faces?
What do you mean, like comparing it to the quality of this?
Yeah, quality-wise.
I mean, I'd like to say that they're better quality than this, but that's up to the perspective of the perspective of the viewer. But I mean, it's clearly they must have spent a lot of time working on this because it's fairly smooth with the 20 FPS, saying that it's also stop motion.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, you want to move on to the next slide?
Sure.
Which is almost 90 years later, in 1995.
Yep.
You know what this movie is, but due to FTC, we can't say it.
Yeah.
So we've put the logo over all the characters and in the title.
It is
Tie
Strive.
You know what movie this is. This actually, fun fact about this, which you can see on the right. When Redacted came out and when it was in production, there were only 27 animators working on it, which is like crazy when you think about it. Like when you watch movie credits now for like any of the newest Disney or Pixar films, there's like the credits go on for like a solid like 8 to 10 minutes because of how many animators are working on it. But when this came out, there were only 27 of them working on it. They used over 400 computer models for the movie, over 300 computer processors, and the movie is in 24 FPS. So some other production notes. the lip syncing of the voice acting to the characters' mouths moving took a week per every 8 seconds of film.
Wow.
So it was painstaking, and total there was 4 years of production, and they only had a budget of $30 million, and that movie grossed $373 million.
Yeah.
So it's
Very
pretty
successful.
incredible to see what just like 27 people did.
Yeah.
On
Yeah,
a budget
definitely.
of, like,
Because
30 million.
you think maybe I could do that or whatever. Not me personally.
Yeah.
But you, viewer, if you set your mind to something, then you can probably do it. I think there's this pilot of like an animated TV show on YouTube that was just made by a bunch of people in 2 years called Has Been Hotel. So pretty much it's pretty cool that they were able to do that. It's a little risque, but the important thing is that they did it independently, which is interesting. So
yeah, and I respect, like,
Yeah.
I've said on stream that I don't actually like that show, but I definitely have respect for that show.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
It would be
Because,
like
I
difficult
know
to do all that.
what went behind it for the production. And even though I'm not like satisfied with like the story or the jokes or any of that, the actual the work that went into it, I can definitely respect.
Yeah, definitely. Have you heard of that heard of the show, Ryan?
Yeah, I've watched it. I personally liked it.
Yeah.
You like it?
Yeah, I like it.
I'm not so much a fan of it, but to each their own.
Yeah, what do you think about the animation
that went in it?
What do you think about the animation?
I love the art
Ryan,
style.
Ryan, I mean.
I do like it. Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. Just from a level of an
Sebastian. Sorry. I like the art style, and I mean, it's smooth animation. I haven't watched it in a little while, so I don't really remember much of it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was a bit fast.
That's one of my biggest complaints about it.
Yeah, I think a few people, a lot of people have said that. But it's interesting to see where it would go, especially if a network picks it up. And as long as they afford them the same degree of freedom. But based on the show, I can't imagine like many networks picking it up. Maybe like Adult Swim, but you know what I mean. So this is interesting. So I guess next.
So that's just a little bit about T.Y. Stry.
T.Y. Stry.
As says the redacted logo. But it's incredible to see how hard these 27 animators worked on this production, and the how good of a final product it actually turned out to be. And also the $373 million and the budget of $30 million. I can't remember if that has already been converted in today's money, but basically that's almost, you can kind of double that.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, yeah.
So let's go over to CGI and live action mix. This doesn't have a date because it's just
a process.
But this is where the fun begins, as our main man Anakin is saying there.
This is from, well, I'm not even gonna say it. If you don't know what it's from, I'm sorry. You're not over 13, and you need to get. Yeah,
off
exactly.
This.
You are not one of the knowing ones. So.
You are not on this council, and we don't grant you rank of.
We do not. Yep. So. CGI and live action they work together in modern film. You see it a lot. I think Jurassic World used a lot of CGI for the dinosaurs, but they also used practical effects. Sometimes CGI is given a bit of a negative connotation because people would prefer to use practical effects such as like puppets, models, but it is pretty useful for things that you couldn't really show with practical effects, things that couldn't exist in the real world. even that couldn't look like they exist. You know what I mean? Like explosions. You don't really want to explode something for the sake of making your movie. So that's why CGI is so useful, and it's a form of animation. So you have your shot, and then you put the CGI over it, and it's really cool what they do now with motion capture and so much technology goes into.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about CGI more later.
Yep.
And just some like examples of it and how it's seen, and like Max alluded to it, some people like have negative feelings towards it.
Yeah.
And we can all give our opinions on that when we get to the slide, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Yep. Okay. So that was a brief history. Very abridged. So
yes.
Very abridged. So fooling the human senses. That is kind of what animation is, because animation is creating the illusion of motion by definition. So you need to figure out how to take a ton of static photos and make them into something that resembles an actual scene in real life that you might be looking at. Of course, everyone knows that it's animated because cartoons, just animation has that style to it, but that is what is that's what's trying to be accomplished. You're trying to make some sort of narrative that relates to people, and to do that, it needs to look like there's motion and fluidity. So this is very fundamental to animation. So yeah. First,
so we mentioned this a while ago.
Yep.
We mentioned it with the first fully CGI film and the first animated film. It is frame rate, or FPS. So here's a breakdown of how FPS is used, and we'll talk about what it actually is.
Yep.
So FPS stands for frames per second. That's what it really is. It's just how many frames are gone through per every 1 second. So on the bottom, we kind of have a diagram of that. On the bottom, that's 24 FPS, and on the top is 60 FPS. So, and the arrow is 1 second. So every second there would be 24 frames that you see, and on the top, every second there are 60 frames that you see. So we here at the Gravity Max headquarters, we have like less than 1 FPS.
Negative 1 FPS.
Yeah, negative 1 FPS because we're running on like slides. So, and also if you saw our Rento video, that has like terrible FPS.
Our streaming software doesn't have good FPS, which is fine for most use, because right now we're just doing slideshows, presentations, like a PowerPoint. So you don't really need a high frame rate for that. But then when we played Rento, it was pretty bad. But I think the low frame rate really complemented the gameplay of Rento. So
honestly.
So yeah.
Web videos, film, and most TV, they all use 24 FPS. So Chip, do you use 24 FPS typically?
I typically use 30.
30? Oh, that's
fancy.
Cool. That's usually used by live TV or sports, but there is really no significant difference, I want to say. Just with 30 FPS, it's used more for like rapid motion, such as like football players. I almost called them footballers.
Ballers.
Football players like running 100 yards and all that, and just like trucking it across the field. And the camera is also like rapidly moving, so that's what 30 FPS is usually used for. But most of the movies that you see today are 24 FPS. With the exception of the first animated film, which was filmed at a Chad 20 FPS.
Yeah.
So, so for slow motion, you would typically use, that's what 60 and 120 FPS are used for when concerning film. If you remember the channel, the slow-mo guys, I used to watch them like all the time. They would like blow stuff up in slow motion. It was like great.
Yeah.
was like MythBusters, but without the science.
That's great. That's
and in slow
extracted.
motion.
Yeah.
But on those videos, they would film in 60 or even like 120 FPS, like maybe even like 4K. They do that because that when they initially film it, it's like way too like fast to even follow. But when they go back and they slow it down, it becomes much easier to slow down because they have a lot more to work with.
Yeah.
And actually, if you go onto those videos, like if you just go to YouTube and go into one of their old videos, and on the settings option, you can change like the quality of it.
Yeah.
Changing that, like the videos that I saw like had advanced options, like you could crank it up to like 4K, and that makes it like even slower. So it's really interesting to do, because that's a pretty good lesson in how frames work. So when you're like, if you're a gamer, you're just an elite gamer, such as myself, and Chip as well. If you're elite, and Max too. Max is elite gamer because he's on Rento.
Yeah, Rento. That's my main game.
Yeah, but I think I've invested the most here into games. So when you're gaming, it can be anywhere from like 15 FPS, which is like old school Doom. It's like at 15 FPS, I'm pretty sure, and cranking it all the way up to 60 FPS. Which is like those super cutting edge games, like the newest Battlefield or like any of the newest like CODs or Call of Duties, any of that. Those are at 60 FPS, but normally the average is 30 FPS.
Yeah.
And as you're playing, as your bandwidth, which is like your connection, like messes up. Which is inevitable, your frame rate will drop. You might hear that term, like my frames are dropping.
Yeah.
That means that your connection is messing up, so the quality of what you're playing is going down. It typically drops when they say it's dropping. It usually drops to a choppy 15 FPS, when it's supposed to be running at 30, maybe even 60 FPS.
Oh, and then I'd like to add that another time elapses can often run on 1 frame per minute. They can run on different scales. 1 frame per minute time lapses are pretty cool. The first video on this channel that has not been privated is a time elapse of a sunset, which with a pine tree in the middle, or maybe not a pine tree, but a big tree in the middle of the shot, and I think it's called epic time lapse or something, but prepare to be disappointed if you are looking. Prepare to be disappointed if you're looking for something epic. I just called it epic because that's the word everyone said in 6th grade. Everyone was like, "Epic, that's epic."
Look, I want to take this moment to address chat. If you want to read off chat, Max.
Oh, what a nice message. So, Dfinite says, Gravity Max, you are a brilliant human being. I love watching your videos, and I learned so much. Thank you, Dfinite. I hope you enjoy these live streams. Dfinite? Okay.
Isn't that how you would pronounce that?
I guess, but maybe it's kind of a take on infinite, and it's definite. But
wait, no, isn't it definite?
Definite.
Isn't that what it's a take? You can tell us in chat.
Or maybe, or maybe it's supposed to be their first initial, and then their last name is Finite. That might be it. So
these are all possibilities.
I'm gonna say definite. So definite.
Thank you for the kind message.
Yeah. Hope you enjoy these live streams, and we're gonna try and make some short videos between the live streams, which will be fun. Upping the content. So yeah. Thanks
Back
for watching.
to it.
Yep.
Are we gonna move on to motion frames?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so motion frames. I don't know the official name for these, so we've called them motion frames. Do you know the official name for these, Ryan?
Oh, I just had it.
Oh, you did?
I think it's like I'm not really sure what they are.
All right. So
I did know it, but I can't recall it right now.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, when you figure it out, just tell us. Yeah, so we'll just call them motion frames. So this is an interesting quirk of just human biology or anatomy, pretty much, is that when things move too fast, we see them as blurry. So in the real world, we see things blur when they go too fast. Say a car passes by, that becomes blurry. But in animation, people, once they got up to higher frame rates, they figured that they could just make stuff move across the screen and your eyes would follow. But it turned out that your eyes wouldn't create the same blur that you would see just on a normal object. So it made it look less realistic even though you had a better frame rate, which is obviously not what you're going for. So they had to start putting in these in-between frames where they looked really weird and like horrific if you pause on them. They look really scary.
Yeah.
And I imagine they must be funny to draw, but they actually help make something look more realistic to the human eye because of the blur. So, yeah. It's interesting. They're just fun.
Smear frames.
Oh,
Smear
smear
frames.
frames. I'm gonna, let's fix that. Smear frames. There we go. So, do you use smear frames in any of your animations, Ryan?
I've tried to, but I can't get the technique down. But when I have tried, it does seem to work better.
Yeah?
But yeah, I haven't really gotten it down yet.
That's cool. Yeah. So, yeah, it makes them look more realistic. Yeah, you've got first-hand experience right there. So, yeah, it's really interesting how this could work, because it just pausing on these pictures right now do not look realistic, but they help. So it's interesting. Do you have anything on this, Sebastian?
I just think it's interesting to see the techniques,
Yeah.
the different techniques that go into this, and I'm also kind of interested how this came about because, like, on paper, well, not literally on paper, because on paper it looks exactly like this, but as an idea, if like someone showed up and was like, guys, we gotta draw a smear of the character so it looks better. Like, I don't know who verified that or who originally allowed that, but I'd be interested to see where it originated. I could probably search it up right now.
Sure.
Really quick.
Yeah, I just think it would be so funny to draw these. Like, I imagine the animator for these two images, the animator must have just been laughing as they were drawing these.
Honestly.
Do you ever have a funny smear frame that when you're making smear frames, Ryan? Do you ever find one to be like humorous?
Well, what I've tried them with is with the movement of eyes across the head, because my heads are just circles, so I can't really show them turn. So instead I just move the eyes. And so it'll look like they just have these giant, long eyes on their face.
Yeah. Huh. That's
I actually really found out. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's really just all I have.
Okay. I found out where it originated from.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
So one of the first animated pieces smear frames was the 1942 Warner Brothers short "The Dover Boys at Pimiento University." The short's animator goes by the name of Chuck Jones, and he employed smears as a way to save time while drawing, and would later feature it in his work on Looney Tunes, which is kind of what
on the right
there. Yeah, but if you go to their site, if you just search up smear frames, you actually find a great page which
I'll go to
kind of details the history.
Smear frames. Let's see.
Yeah, it's Ceros, Ceros.
Oh, I see. The art of the smear.
Yeah, that's it. if you just scroll down,
Yeah.
down to the origins piece.
Oh my gosh, look at this. From The Simpsons. Wow.
Yeah.
So, oh no. All these pictures. Let's click through these. These are all from The Simpsons. Oh, it's so funny. Oh no. So yeah, origins. Yeah. One of the first animated pieces. Yeah. So that's an interesting.
So there we go.
That's an interesting little bit of animation knowledge, but yeah. Oh, so we have another message from chat. Jam says, "WAP."
Thank you, Jam.
Thank you. You have done a service to this live stream.
Thank you, Jam. Very cool.
Oh. Yup. Thank you, Jam. Very cool. So yeah, lip syncing.
Yes.
Bam. Another thing that you have to do that we talked about earlier. So this is where you you draw the mouths of the characters so that they look like how a person talking would look. So yeah, I think.
Yeah. So in the bottom right,
it's weird to
we have the words "clip from Chip." We were probably going to include something from that, but honestly, if you just go over to Chip's YouTube channel, which we plugged at the start, a lot of your videos include lip syncing, right? Like
I'm
the
pretty
most
sure most of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to put one in? Do you want to put one in real quick? I'll talk about lip syncing for a second while you guys get it, and then we can play it. Yeah, the frame rate won't be great, but.
So. Yeah. So the
Actually, yeah, we don't need a video. The videos don't work well, come to think of it, on the stream. Unless we had it beforehand and could put it in as a media source, like as a file.
That's an L. But again, you can just go right over to his channel.
Yeah, just go watch. Go watch.
So more on lip syncing, like we talked about with Redacted. The first fully CGI film, it took a week per 8 seconds of film. Like a week work per 8.
Yeah.
And that's a lot, honestly.
Yeah.
So we've obviously gotten a lot better at it, or we've just gotten more people to work on it. How difficult would you say lip syncing is, Chip, in your videos?
Well, I usually will use a mouth from a past animation that I used, but when making a new one, it is incredibly hard because you need to draw out each individual mouth. But then again, it is a lot easier now than it was with Redacted, because specifically the program I use, you can take all of the mouths that you've drawn and put them into one symbol, and it will automatically lip sync for you.
Oh. Wow.
But if you were just doing it by themselves, it would take ages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that 8 weeks, or how many weeks was it?
It was a week per 8 seconds.
A week per 8 seconds? That is realistic. I honestly would expect more.
Yeah, so, lip syncing is pretty vital because otherwise you don't know if a character's talking and it just does not look like anything vaguely realistic, you know? It would be very distracting to have an animation without any lip syncing with just blank stares from the characters. You know, you need to have that. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just fundamental. Can't explain it, but it would be very weird if I was just like closed mouthed, mouth not moving while talking. Like, that is just weird. Like ventriloquists, it's difficult to do that. And that's for a reason. Yeah. Because your mouth is supposed to move when you talk. So you want your characters to have that too. Yeah.
So next up, we have character design with Chip's original character.
Nice.
So, Chip, you can really take the wheel on this one. First off, how do you create a character? To say, like, how do you make decisions for what the character is going to look like, what they're going to wear? How do you get into that mindset?
Well, it differs between everyone. Like, sometimes it'll just come to you, or you'll more of get inspiration from others, or you'll just draw something that sort of looks like yourself, like mine is.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting for the moment when I'll finally get an idea of something that doesn't look like me but is still original. So it takes time to get an original character design, but basics are just making it look like yourself.
Yeah.
That's cool. So how long does it take to like make a character? Like once you have the idea, how long does it take to transfer that to actual animation?
Well, for my character, the drawing and color will probably take like around 20 or 30 seconds.
Oh.
But for more detailed, I'd imagine like a minute or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not too long once you get it down. And then you can repeat frames so that you don't need to completely redraw it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how do you design characters in relation to their personalities? Because I think in a lot of stuff it's
I feel like for more like bland or angry people, you do more of like hard edges and squarish types, and then for like soft and kind characters, you do more soft edges and round shapes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, a big aspect of character design is to make your characters look like how they act, or you can subvert things by making them behave opposite to how they look. And it's interesting because a lot of the way that people perceive the world is by making visual judgments. So they look at something and they're like, oh, okay, that's like that. So you can use that to help your character look like the way they should look for your film, or you can make them look like the opposite to get a reaction out of the audience. So So anything else on character design?
So Max and I are writers. So all of our character design is through words.
Yeah.
I can't draw.
Yeah.
Originally I was gonna try and sketch out a character.
Oh yeah.
I can't draw.
That was funny. I remember that guy. That was an interesting character. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely Lovecraftian and horror. So, the way Max and I do it is obviously through like words, but I think there's a lot of similarities there. Like you were talking, like Chip, when he's making like a soft and a kind character, he uses like soft, like round shapes, kind of like you can see in front of you. We kind of do the same thing when we write, because it's like we would say like, oh, she had like soft, kind eyes, or she was like tall and imposing, or like he was gruff and had a beard, or like whatever. But it's like kind of the same design choices, just in different mediums, which I think is interesting to see.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think of my characters. I have a picture in my mind of all my characters. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, great. So let's see. Styles of animation. Animation. Now this is, I think, I don't know. We kind of worded this oddly, I guess. I kind of worded this a little strangely. This isn't like animation styles, which is everyone kind of has their unique art style, but this is more just, what would you call it? Like programs,
techniques of animation, or like
just ways,
means of animation.
Yeah, means of animation, I guess. Seize the means of animation. Let me just show you the next slide. Bam, stop motion. That's an example. Now you get what we're talking about here. Yeah. So
in this photo, we are vibe checking.
We are vibe checking the screen in this photo. It is a great triumph. We have launched our first return attack on the vibe checkers. I don't know. And so this is a picture from the South Park intro, which is a show that is not meant for kids. So FTC, leave again. Anyone under 13, leave. So that so stop motion is where you take a object or a drawing or a little cutout like this, and you take a picture of it. Then you move it a little bit and take another picture, and then you move it more and you take another picture, and then eventually you have a full animation. And it's pretty painstaking process, I think, especially when someone does 3D models. I think claymation is a type of stop motion, and it involves clay figures, which I just imagine must be so hard to work with, because if you move it a bit and then like the arm falls off and you kind of have to like squish it back on, but then you warp everything, just complete mess, you know. But yeah, so it's an interesting style of animation, and yeah, I mean, I think it's really fundamental. And I like this construction paper type animation. I think it's a little choppy, but I think that adds to the. Sometimes it's a good choice, I think. South Park originally actually cut out pieces of construction paper to make their characters, but now of course they use a computer program that makes it look like the original style. But it's really fascinating. If you watch the first episode, which if you're over 13, you can do that. But if you so FTC, it is made with construction paper, which is pretty interesting because you think like, hey, I could do that, right? I like stop motion because it's a fun thing that I feel like anyone could do. Only some could do well, but I think anyone can pick up a few objects and move them around. I think our friend Jacob, Daikaiju Productions, who was on here a while ago, he has a lot of stop motion animations on his YouTube channel. They are like sometimes with Lego figures and sometimes with Godzilla action figures, because that's like the topic matter most of his videos. And I think this genre or style or whatever is pretty cool. I think
Yeah. So I think you said it pretty well.
Yeah.
Chip, have you ever done anything with stop motion or anything like?
Yeah.
You have.
I've done the just the stop motion, also the claymation.
Oh, cool. Nice.
What? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it harder to do?
If I was to animate stuff, I would stop motion because I can't draw. But
yeah. Do you think, Chip? Do you think it's harder or easier to do a stop motion animation than just drawing it or using a computer? Have you found it more time consuming or less?
Stop motion takes probably the most time out of everything because you need to move your objects, then take a picture, move them slightly again, take a picture, and you need to be like aware of how much time everything will take up and like realistic motion, because it's harder to go back and change that once you've moved everything again.
Yeah.
Where more digital, it's easier to go back and fix mistakes. So I'd say stop motion is like an easier concept, but it takes a lot longer. And
yeah, definitely, that's interesting. It's kind of, I don't know, what would you say? Like it's easier to do, but then it's harder because it's easier. It's weird, but yeah, it's a very basic concept, like, but it's still pretty difficult. So yeah, stop motion.
Let's head over to the next slide.
Sure.
So this is hand-drawn animation, like the older stuff. Everything was hand-drawn. Kind of like here, you can kind of see how he goes from the sketch, then a more defined sketch, and then to the colored version. This is like the old cartoons kind of have like this kind of animation. And this kind of was adapted into some of the other kinds of animation, which you're going to see.
Yeah.
So that's what I have to say.
Cool. Yeah. So this is interesting. It's probably with it's kind of similar to stop motion in that it'll take a lot of time and that it's kind of an easy concept to think about, but it's where you draw each frame, which is how Disney started off making their films. They actually had people draw each frame, and it's, I mean, I can imagine it's just like really difficult to do because you have to draw your character again and again. And I suppose after the first time drawing it, it's easier to draw it again. But I think it would be hard to replicate the same exact character just having moved slightly in the next frame. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's hand-drawn animation is exactly what it sounds.
Pretty much, yeah.
Been around. Oh, I mean, I guess like Max and I were debating this earlier, like way early when we first had the idea for this stream, like what technically counted as animation.
Yeah.
Because like I was under the impression that like anything that depicted motion was animation, but that's not entirely like correct. Yeah. It's something that creates the illusion of movement. That's the actual definition of it. But I was under the impression that like the cave paintings actually counted as animation because they depicted like people throwing spears, or like even the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Those guys like depicting getting water, or like embalming people, like whatever the
typical Egyptian Tuesday.
But, yeah, just 5 a.m. like wake up, 6 a.m. feed the crocodiles, 7 a.m. sacrifice a child, 8 a.m. go eat breakfast, like just like standard day. But that doesn't technically count as animation, even though it like you can infer motion. Yeah. But it doesn't create the illusion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like the difference between a comic strip and then modern animation. So yeah.
So let's head over to the next style, or not style. Well, whatever. Next means of animation.
The next means type. Yeah. So this is vector based.
Type. Yeah, that the next type of animation.
Next type. That's good. Yeah. So you just got vectored.
You just got vectored.
Yeah. Vector.
So this is vector based. It's also done on the computer, but it's 2D. Like you can see in front of you, like even though those are supposed to be 3D shapes, they're in a 2D plane. Yeah. So this is used in a lot of like infographics or informational channels, such as like Kurzgesagt, or I don't know how to pronounce it, but that's vector animation. Yeah. If you don't know him, which you should if you've ever been on the internet before, so if you don't know him, you're not 13. Yeah, you need to get the hell off this video. But in the rare event that you are above 13 and you don't know Kurzgesagt, go check out his channel.
Okay, it's Kurzgesagt.
If you want to know how to spell it, it's the sound that a car crash makes.
It's, I think, Kurz. Honestly, just look up Kurz and then just spell anything, and then spell anything with a G or an E in it, or a T, and then it'll autocorrect for you. Or just look up In a Nutshell. They changed their name for that specific reason, that no one could spell it. Kurzgesagt is the German word for in a nutshell. So they're like, yeah, maybe not.
But all of that is vector-based animation. Again, done on the computer with models. It's just 2D instead of CGI, which we're going to talk about next, which is 3D.
And it's interesting because vector-based has to do with vectors, which are arrows with direction and magnitude, as Vector said in the Despicable Me movie. And that's why he calls himself Vector, because he commits crimes with direction and magnitude. But but the computer programs that run vector-based animations, I presume, use vectors to have these to animate. They use like they use motion, like what am I saying? Arrows with direction and magnitude to simulate motion. So yeah, I guess that's like the values of like this guy moves across the screen, so they would have in the internal workings, they would have a vector saying, okay, his motion is at, I don't know, 100 pixels per second left.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's basically why it's vector based, and Vector is a supervillain, you know. That's why those two things exist and are both called Vector. Yeah.
So yeah, vector based is used a lot today. You know, like I said before, a lot of educational channels use it. I don't think there's ever been like a movie that's vector based. Like I can't. Nothing comes to my mind here.
Yeah.
I'll look vector.
So I'm gonna ask Ryan. So you do vector-based animation, right?
I actually do not.
Oh, so what do you use? How do you animate?
Well, I'm pretty sure that vector is like more math-based and with shapes. When I do more of pixels.
I see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I briefly looked up vector animation because I'm not really sure what it is. But I'm pretty sure it's related to like bitmaps. Which is just like creating shapes, which you can.
That makes sense, because I think the difference probably being that these guys, they don't really have lines for the edges, you know, whereas your animations do, like lines on the black lines. What do they call them? Like boundary lines? I don't know, but these are just soft shapes. What?
Right. Outlines.
Outline. I don't know why, but I have not been able to. Well, my relatives were recently here for a few days, and you know, we've just been going around a lot, so I'm pretty tired. We've been just doing things around my town a lot, so I don't know. That might be why. But anyways.
But yeah, no. Either way, it's commonly used. There's not a movie in it, obviously. Because that would kind of look terrible, but definitely useful. And yeah, Ryan did bring up that it does use a lot of math. Yeah, and that's pretty true.
Yeah, vectors are used in math class. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have vectors when I get back to school on Tuesday. I think there's gonna be a lot of vector stuff.
Yeah, you get Monday off, just a solid bag of cheese. That's
It's a professional development day. And as I am not a professional, I get to stay home. Bam.
Nice.
So, yeah, we can move on.
So computer-generated image. Yeah. Here we have Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, or the Caribbean. Either, which way are you supposed to pronounce it?
I think I heard something like, the Caribbean is supposed to be the Caribbean, but then the movie is supposed to be Caribbean, or something like that.
How do you pronounce?
I bet they're both acceptable.
Here we go. American pronunciation.
Ooh, okay.
Say it. Caribbean. Oh. Not Caribbean.
Yeah. Yep. I always say Caribbean.
Now the British pronunciation. The British pronunciation is Caribbean.
Oh.
But the American / correct pronunciation is
I feel
Caribbean.
like I have to say Caribbean now, because I always use the British pronunciations of things.
Oh no.
I'll say Caribbean.
You have to use Caribbean.
I'll say Caribbean though, but I will not stop saying aluminium, and I will not stop spelling sulfur with a PH.
You really need to stop.
I will not stop.
Sulfur should have an F.
It's a PH.
And aluminum is pronounced unless you're smoking. So.
No, it's spelled differently. It's aluminium with an I.
You spell it differently too?
Yes. I did
not know that there is. I thought they just
aluminium
said it wrong.
No.
On purpose.
No, they spell it differently. It's kind of like color versus color with the OU. But no, think about it. Think of how many elements end in ium. uranium, neptunium,
Yeah.
right? You have ium is a common ending to many elements. So, as follows, it should be aluminium, not aluminum.
Okay, Chip, you're the tiebreaker here. How should you pronounce the what number is it? Is it 13?
Element.
Yeah. How do you pronounce that element?
Aluminum.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. We have our definitive answer.
No.
Isn't that how it's spelled?
Oh yeah.
In America, but not in Britain.
Okay,
Not in the
but
scientific
listen,
community.
A, which one's bigger? B, which one's better? B, C, B does not come after B. C comes after C. No, C comes after B. I'm having a dyslexic episode.
I guess aluminium would be better. Because, I mean, just looking it up, that's the...
Lewis's betrayal.
It's the first results.
You know what?
Betrayed.
I'm going to table this issue and talk about something probably equally as controversial. So, what do we think about CGI? Like it?
Oh yeah,
dislike
let's
it?
hear our opinion.
Let's see. Personally, let's see. I think that it would be better to use practical animation when you can, but when you need to do something that's just crazy and would be incredibly costly or just impossible in the real world, then you should have CGI. I think you need a mix, of both. I don't think we should just get rid of CGI, especially considering the fact that a lot of films are just pure CGI, just 3D animated films, often are just CGI. So, right, like T.Y. Stry. T.Y. Stry is just CGI. T.Y. Stry is just CGI, which means that CGI cannot die because because CGI is important. So we can't just get rid of it.
Yeah, but CGI is important. Let me tell you why.
Yeah, but in live action films, I think it would be best to, as far as budget and practicality allows, it would be better to use practical effects instead of computer generated effects. That's what I think.
What do you think, Chip?
About if CGI is good or not?
Yeah. Do you like it? You hate it?
I like it because it gets the point across. I feel like it makes movies better because they can add in the effects that they need.
Mm-hmm. But what would you think would you prefer it over a practical animation, practical effect?
Me personally, probably.
Yeah, that is true. Sometimes they look more realistic with CGI. If you watch an old film, it's funny to see the effects. I watched the original Terminator recently, and at the beginning with the lightning, the electricity from someone traveling back in time, it's just like an overlay, and I'm like, wow. But it's charming. I think I kind of like the old style, but yeah, CGI is definitely helpful for improving effects. So yeah, I think both sides of the argument have validity.
Yeah. Well, me personally, I think CGI is great.
Mm-hmm.
For people that say, "Oh, well, then they're not acting if they're all CGI." I literally raise you any of the CGI movies.
Yeah.
Like Josh Brolin doing his thing on the Snapper, on that dude. We all know who I'm talking about.
Yep.
Or even James Spader, right? That's his name. James Spader, right? Yes, that guy. Cool. James Spader. He played Ultron in Age of Ultron.
Nice.
And he did such a great job for that. Yeah. And he was entirely CGI. His entire body, he turned into a 9-foot tall robot. And the acting was better than other acting I've seen from A-list actors. So for people that say it takes the acting part of it out, you're just completely wrong. You're not just stupid, you're wrong.
Because you gotta think of voice acting too.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're voice acting, you're just sitting there.
One of my favorite fields. I would love work as a voice actor. But
Everyone,
it does
please
not
hire
take
him.
that like charm away.
Yeah.
Now, for the question, would I prefer it over a practical movie? I think I would I like just looking at my favorite movies. My favorite movie of all time is called Cabin in the Woods or The Cabin in the Woods.
Oh yeah.
It's directed by Joss Whedon. Best thing ever. No, just best movie. I probably forced Max to watch it like a lot.
Not forced. I think you came over once, and I was just like, "What
Yeah,
should we do?"
I've
and you're like,
watched it.
"I got this movie,"
literally
and I'm like, "Okay."
a lot.
I liked it.
Yeah.
It was like, well, I don't want to spoil it, but good movie.
Yeah, no. The less you know about it, the better.
Yeah, good
but
movie.
That movie, the Joss Whedon and who is his co-director? Drew Goddard. Yeah. So Drew Goddard and him, they wanted to use as many practical effects as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was directed by Goddard, it was produced by Joss Whedon, and they both wrote it. So they wanted to use as many practical effects as possible, and they did. And it's crazy to see like what things are actually practical effects. But there are some scenes where what they did could not have been accomplished by any other means than CGI. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they really do some amazing things. But there are just some things where like you have to use CGI for.
Yeah, and that's fine.
There's
that's fine.
no
that's
way to do it practically, which is why I respect it.
Yeah.
But looking at like some of my other favorite movies, like Gladiator, which is all practical effects. I tend to like practical effects over CGI, but not to discredit CGI at all.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, those are my thoughts. Yeah. So take them as you will. Take them like a pill. Take them with a grain of salt or an entire beach worth. It's up to you.
Great. So yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, let's move on.
Nice.
So
this is our
the
interview.
Life of an Animator. This is our Q&A with Chip.
Yep.
We've been asking him questions throughout this, but here's an entire section of it.
Yeah.
So, Chip, first question. Do you enjoy working as an...
I do.
Good. Do you want to go into animation as a career?
I mean, I would like for that to happen, but I am not sure how likely that is to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it's a competitive field, and there are a lot of people out there that are better than me, and I honestly can't draw that well, and I feel like that would be a downfall.
Yeah, any field of art is pretty difficult to succeed in. Just if you think of, I don't know, just as an author, like I could not support myself just off of books, even though it would be fun if I could, but no, like you gotta, I guess, keep it as your passion, your hobby, but then you can also have something else that you do just, to make ends meet, and that you like at least a little bit, but yeah, that's definitely true.
How long have you been animating?
Ooh, probably 2 or 3 years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do
you think you've improved a lot since you've started?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry, yeah. Do you think you've improved a lot since you started 3 years ago?
Oh, I definitely have. Going back and looking at the old stuff I've made, and now it's so much better. Yeah,
I love looking at my old videos every once in a while, and I go back, say, 6 months, and I'm like, okay, this is fine. This is actually pretty good. But then I go back further, and I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. So yeah, I get that feeling.
So what do you think is the biggest part about being an animator? Is it being creative, being diligent, just being productive overall? What is the key thing that you need to be?
creative.
Creative.
Like being able to manage your time and productivity would be second, but creativity is definitely first.
Nice. So you, in your videos, would you say that you already have your signature style, or would you say that you bounce around a lot?
I mean, I've done pretty much everything in the one style I've been using, but I'm now starting to work to like make my lines a bit thinner because I feel like they're a bit too thick.
Yeah.
Take away some quality.
Did you always draw like that, or was it only until you started animating developed like your style?
Well, when I first started trying to draw people, it was like how I draw my characters now.
Nice.
So how long does it usually take to make a video for you?
It definitely depends. Like my most recent probably took like 20 minutes.
Oh.
But ones that I spend more time on can take anywhere from like half an hour to an hour, maybe 4 or 5 hours.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Even more.
Yeah, that's a similar scale to how it used to take me to make some of my old videos. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah. That's pretty much all the questions I have.
Yeah. Do you have any more comments on, I don't know, how it is to be animating?
I mean, it's fun because you get to take anything you think of and make it real. Or, I mean, not real, but you get to visualize it.
Yeah.
And anyone else gets to. And so you can just portray anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that with writing. Definitely, I like to kind of imagine that, like, have other worlds to go to. That's what I like to think of. I like to think of it as kind of escapism a little bit. But yeah, do you see it as like that sometimes with animating?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say that.
Yeah. Interesting. So, yeah.
Should we move on?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I will. Yeah. So, final thoughts. Big thank you to Ryan.
Thanks for being here.
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely check out Chip Major. It was really informative to have you here. Animation is definitely a topic that I would know less about just than a ton of science. So it was good to have you here to shed some insights on how it is to be an animator and your knowledge on the subject. So yeah, thank you. So yeah, in conclusion.
In conclusion, I think we, like, Max and I have definitely learned a lot from this stream.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a trend in season 2. This is the first episode of season 2, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to get more and more guests on who are kind of like experts in their field or like worked in it in a long time, so that we can learn right alongside with you guys. Like, we obviously do we wouldn't have all these slides if we didn't.
Yeah.
But
it's good to talk to someone with first-hand experience.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Experience is one of the most valuable things ever. So we're going to do our best to bring that right to you guys that are watching.
Great. So I think that's it. Anything else? Yeah. Well, thanks for watching Gravity Max live stream. Hope you enjoy season 2 and our video stuff that we'll be trying to put out every Wednesday, but we might not manage that, but we're gonna try. It's also, I hope you enjoy the background music. We're gonna get more tracks so that you're not just listening to this on repeat. Hopefully it was quiet enough that it wasn't too bad. But yeah, I would like to thank Yui Films for the suggestion of background music and of videos to put between the live streams. So yeah, your advice has been heeded. Think about that. So, thanks for watching, and yeah, that's it. Goodbye.